Today on the Rise of the Challenge podcast.
It took me a really long time in not drinking to really find this, because I've recreated the same friendships for a long time, which were very surface level. Mm-hmm. And really the last 3 to 4 years in becoming a coach, I've worked on my willingness to be vulnerable. I've worked on how I express my emotions and talk about everything. And the friendships that I have now are stronger. They have not been as long.
Welcome to the Rise to the Challenge podcast. Joining today, he's the podcast host of the Untapped Keg and alcohol-free life coach. It's RJ Zimmerman. How are you doing today, RJ?
I'm really well today. Thanks. How are you, bud?
Doing good. We are so excited to have you on the show to talk about your rise to the challenge. What we like to do with all of our guests is go right to the beginning. Talk about where you're from and what did you like doing growing up?
So I am from Wisconsin, and yes, we do say it like that. I'm not changing my voice for how it is. I didn't realize till I moved to the East Coast that we say it weird. So, and really that's how we say it. So do we really say it weird, or do you all?
Yeah, that'll be the debate of the century now.
Right. So I grew up in the Green Bay area. Yes, I'm religious. I'm a Packers fan. I grew up in a small town, 2,000 people. I went to high school and with probably 80 of the same kids from kindergarten through high school I graduated with. Wow. I graduated with 100 people. Probably 15 of them were there before fourth grade. So, I mean, very tight-knit. Know everybody, know like everything they did wrong, all the things they do right. As a kid, I was out of the house as much as I could. I grew up in a 2-bedroom house with a brother and sister. So I shared a bedroom with a brother and sister till I left the house to go to college. And sports. So it was like I was out of the house playing sports, watching sports, talking about sports. And it was as much as I could do outside, I would, and I tried to be out of the house as much as I could. So
a lot of times we ask guests, with living in a small town, did you kind of like that kind of closeness where maybe people knew a little bit too much about what was going on with you or in the household? Or did you kind of like that because you could depend on other people in town if you needed help and things like that?
It definitely is a double-edged sword for everything that you said. I would say that I liked it as a kid because from a young age, probably 8 or 9, I could take my bike wherever I wanted. And my parents knew everybody in town, or everybody in town knew my parents. So they knew I was going to be okay. And that was really awesome and liberating. But since I moved out, I have never lived in a city of less than 50,000 people. So I guess that I do like the fact that I can disappear a little bit if I want to. But I did really enjoy it as a kid, that feeling of that I didn't have to fear too much from people. And, you know, that could be a little bit of a double-edged sword, like I said, because you trust people, maybe you might make some not great decisions when it comes to, life in general, right?
I've kind of had the reversed experience where when I was growing up, I was city. Like you mentioned, not living in a city less than 50,000. That was me. So many people. And then I moved by myself and I'm in the outskirts. And it's like, I almost like the city vibe, because I think it's just growing up in that kind of area. You kind of get used to seeing cars driving by, seeing people walking around. And now it's like, where are the people? I mean, there's people around me, but you just don't get that vibe. And I think that's just what I grew up, and you're kind of so soaked into that. So differences are definitely positive and negative in those situations.
Definitely. And that's something that I appreciate too about bigger cities, especially where I live now, which is in the Virginia Beach, Virginia area. Anything that I would want to do is not very far away. And that's something Green Bay is fairly large city, 100,000 people, but there's not like a ton to do.
Mhm.
So you often had to drive an hour or more to get to the events, depending on what you want to do. So um, it did lead to a lot of backyard football and a lot of us making our own fun. So my imagination on things that I can do and just go and make happen is a little bit wider than some of my friends who grew up in bigger cities because they didn't have to use their imagination to make fun.
Mhm.
But like there's still some things that like I said, if you want to disappear or um, you know, that kind of a thing, there was no chance to do that growing up in the town that I was in.
You talked about growing up in the Green Bay area. Packers is definitely the main team people are supporting. Was football that main sport that you enjoyed playing, or was there other sports that caught your interest?
Um, football was definitely what we played the most, like go out backyard. But I played baseball from you know, my earliest ages that I can remember. And I still play softball and baseball when I can. And then basketball. I was into all those and I got football I kind of fell off of a little bit in high school, but my baseball and basketball love really took off there. I became pretty good at both actually.
What did sports kind of teach you about yourself, or did you find a new skill that you never knew you had while playing sports?
Hmm. It it really led to my self-confidence that I could be on the court or on the field with anybody. Like there was nobody that I felt I couldn't hang with. That took time. Like there was a lot of hurdles to overcome there. But between being a team player, being willing to sacrifice stats for the team for a win, um, you know, doing the hard work, doing the little things that people often overlook and not even realizing that you're necessarily doing them,
Mhm.
but somebody points it out to you that you're doing this little thing. It's, oh, yeah, I am. And that kind of translates to other jobs as well. And then, um, honestly, leadership, which I've always called myself a reluctant leader because I haven't wanted to take that role, but somehow I seem to always end up there. And it's usually because there's no better option than than myself. Um, but sometimes you need to learn. I don't think it's sometimes. If you want to be a good leader, you have to learn how to follow. And when you learn how to follow, you can see how to get others to follow you too.
Well, it's almost it's a saying, but I can't think of the exact words. But a leader doesn't have to have a title to be a leader. And
Yes,
where people think, oh, just because you're a manager, you're a good leader. Well, there's managers out there that are not good leaders and they don't listen to what other people, no one wants to follow them because no one believes them as a leader. So it's kind of like that situation where I've been that where I can become a leader because I listen, I do all these things that a leader should be doing, but I never had the title. And I think it taught me to learn more about what I can do becoming that role.
absolutely. And it is very true that every department has a leader. It doesn't matter where you're working, it doesn't matter what you do. There's somebody who you go to the boss. There's somebody that
Yeah.
you look to help train you, right? And this is so as a high voltage line tech for 10 years. So I worked on high voltage power lines and I ended up becoming a crew leader. But how I explain to blue collar people what a safe space is when you are going through an apprenticeship, when you are learning, when you're being trained, there's always that person that you would avoid going to because no matter what you brought to them, they acted like you were an idiot. Like,
Yeah.
how could you have that question? How do you not understand? And then there's that person that you take all your questions to, that you try, you listen to everything that they say, you go to if there's a problem. If you make a mistake, that's where you go because you know that they're going to be there to help you. They understand that you're not there to ruin anybody's day. And those are leaders, and those are also safe spaces. That's what you mean by a safe space, where you're allowed to make a mistake, but it's not the end of the world, because most of our
Mhm.
mistakes are not the end of the world. And nobody goes in like, I'm going to make this mistake and watch what they do. Right. Like, okay, there's kids, there's teenagers. Right. But like, outside of that, like, you have to really piss somebody off for them to do that. And
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, that's just the story that we make up.
When you were growing up, did you have that dream job out there? Did you have
Hmm.
one, or did you kind of for letting the path take you where you wanted to go?
I was definitely letting the path take me. Like, I thought I was going to be a professional football player, like every little kid, for a long time. And then when I realized that I was slow, it was like, okay, that's not happening. So, um, I really had no idea. I never looked to the future. It was just, you know, the next game, showing up, what do I got to do in school so that I can play? And I actually didn't drink or do any drugs in school because I didn't want to miss any games to play in. So like, when I went to college, I had no idea. Go junior year, like halfway through, I took the ACTs. I'm like, they're decent enough. I can get into just about any school that I would want to. And I had like a 3.3 GPA. So it wasn't like great, but it was good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't look into any schools. I just asked my best friend, hey, where are you going to school? And he told me, and I'm like, all right, me too. And that was the school I applied for. And that's where I ended up going to college. No, no idea what I was going to do. And that's kind of how I've been shifting through life a little bit. But um, the one thing that has been constant throughout my journey is my want and my passion for helping people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, um, when I would help a friend get better at sports, I would show them, hey, if you do this move, it'll help you, be able to stop them. Or, on defense, when you're kind of looking, take a step back and you'll be able to see what's behind you more. And then you'll be able to see what's coming in front of you at the same time. And um, when being able to celebrate other people, that is that is something that I do, and it's not an act. I legitimately, it doesn't matter how small it is, I will celebrate people because they deserve to be celebrated. And to be perfectly honest, that's how I wish people would approach me.
Well, even like to celebrating the small stuff, I think people think, oh, you have to celebrate the huge accomplishments. Those small things kind of keeps getting you motivated to continue to keep going and going and going. That you kind of have to not be hard on yourself saying, oh, I only did that much. Well, if you lifted a weight that was like something you never thought you could, celebrate that. Like be proud that you are getting stronger and things. And then there's other areas you mentioned a little while ago that you didn't party, you didn't do anything because you didn't want to miss out on games. When you transition to college, college is known for that kind of experimental aspect in people's adult life. Did you kind of have a change of mindset, or you were still continuing maybe with sports that you still had that same mindset of not wanting to miss anything because of the repercussions?
No, I always knew after graduation it was on, and that is exactly what happened. Um, and I guess I did kind of mislead a little bit because I did drink twice in high school. Both of them my senior year. But they were like, I made sure that I was like super safe about it, and that there was somebody to get me out of there. But it's small town Wisconsin, and Wisconsin's drinking culture is different. A study comes out every year, the 50 drunkest counties in the United States of America, and Wisconsin wants to know how many of the 50 they can get. They've never had below 40.
Oh my,
Always 40 of the 50 drunkest counties in the United States is in Wisconsin. Last year was 43. This year was 40. And it is legal to give your child an alcoholic drink in Wisconsin, any age, as long as it's your parents giving them.
wow.
So that tells you a little bit about the drinking culture in Wisconsin. So if you get an underage, like you really have to deserve it a lot of the time.
Mhm.
Um, but when I graduated, it was like, I don't know, probably it was no, the night of graduation, I went to a party and I partied pretty hard in the summer. And it turned out that I was really good at it. And then going into college, it was, yeah, it was the same thing where schoolwork came easy to me as long as I went to class.
Mhm.
I was able to absorb and grasp just about everything. And because schoolwork was easy for me, I decided to take advantage of drinking, and then I stopped going to class because listen, there's a special every single night of the week that you can get something. And um yeah, that really came back to bite me uh in the future. But it was definitely not something that I thought was going to take over my life the way that it did. But when it came time to decelerate and transition, I didn't know how.
Did any of your friends in college notice a change in your behavior with how you were living kind of the lifestyle?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, before I turned 21, it was very common for all of us to go out and get drunk and drink as much as I was drinking. And then I turned 21 and I'm going to bar on Tuesdays because it's dollar bottle. I was going to a bar on Wednesdays because it's the $5 Long Island's. Thursdays is Thirsty Thursdays. Come on. And then it's the weekend. So I was going out every single night and I was not just drinking a couple and like meeting people.
Mhm.
I was blacking out every single time that I went out and out till bar time, come home. I guess not every night coming home, sometimes waking up wondering where I am, how I got there, where's my car, all the cool stuff. um, and I had two or three friends that said, "Hey, you're drinking an awful lot. You should probably think about cutting back because it's becoming a problem." And um, I knew it. I knew that I was drinking a lot, but I was like, it's okay. We're young. I'll grow out of it. And that was kind of what my mindset was going through college until I spent all my money drinking. So then I had to spend money to pay bills
Mhm.
and buying ramen to eat ramen, but I still want to go out and party and drink. And so going out and getting people to buy my drinks for me because they want to party with me. Like
Wow.
that was I did that more often than I would care to admit. And um yeah, it was just nothing. There was nothing that was going to stop me from not just getting a drink, but getting drunk.
During that time, did you ever feel that it was becoming an addiction? Or you were kind of like, well, I'm not doing it 24/7. I only do it at nights or in the afternoons, celebrating things like that. Did you ever have those moments, or did anyone kind of confront you? Like you mentioned your friends saying that you might need to cut back, but personally, as an individual, did you ever say that to yourself?
Um, yeah, there were times where I tried to moderate, where I'd be like, tonight I'm not going to drink that much so that because tomorrow I got this going on. And the thing about how I drank was um, when I started, there was no stopping it.
Mhm.
And it didn't matter how much was around, I was going to drink all of it. And there were so many times where I knew I had something with my girlfriend the next day, or my family had something planned, or I had to go visit them at home. So I can go out, but I need to go home at 11 or I need to go home at midnight. And those were always the nights where um, I was out till like 4 a.m., 5 a.m.,
Wow.
waking up like 3 hours past my alarm was supposed to be. And I mean, still drunk, but um, not to the point where it felt like I was still drunk. But had I blown on a breathalyzer, there's no way I was legal to drive yet. So when I moved from my college town to Madison, Wisconsin, that was when it was like, I need to stop because Madison, it was going to be more expensive to go out to the bars and drink. Um, I needed to get my life together, get a job, figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Because I'd been going to college for 6 years. I took a year off. So it was really 5 years. And I changed my major halfway through because I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And it I was able to cut back when I got to Madison, but that cutback was the number of nights I drank a month. It wasn't how much I drank when I drank on those nights.
So you were still going basically hardcore to make up for the less amount of days that you were drinking.
Yeah, and it was the feeling like really what it is and the first I felt at the first moment that I drank was it shut my mind off.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I was always chasing was to shut my mind up, to stop that inner critic and try and fill that void that I feel inside where I feel like a piece of crap. I feel like I'll never measure up. Um, and hide, honestly, from myself, from life, and get that external validation because people never said that like I was a bit like there was one or two people that I was a burden to drinking that told me that. But for the most part, like people loved drinking with me. And even when I got to the point where I couldn't talk because I drank so much alcohol that night,
Mm-hmm.
people would still take care of me and make sure I was okay the next morning. And never told me that I was, as big of a POS as I felt a lot of the time. So
When was the moment that you kind of had to realize that I need to change everything, stop drinking, or really look at my life and say, what do I need to do different?
it came down to being able to pay my bills and where I was going in life. I had a job that was fine. It was a fine job, but there wasn't a career in that job
Mm-hmm.
and there wasn't much for um honestly like thriving. So it was going to be scraping by um and I didn't think I'd be able to support a family on that. And where I was currently, I couldn't pay my bills. I couldn't get my girlfriend a Christmas present. Um I couldn't I was going to line school at this time so I knew I wanted to be a lineman. Um and so with that you're on call 24/7. So if I want to be a lineman and I want to be on call 24/7, I can't be getting drunk all the time. And at that point, I wasn't getting drunk all the time, but I couldn't get wasted like I was
Mm-hmm.
because when I did, sometimes I'd get behind the wheel of the car and you get a DUI and you lose your CDL, you can't be a lineman. Um, so it came down to my life being stuck in this one track, feeling like I have all this talent and this potential that is wasted on me, and um, feeling ashamed for my family and my friends of who I was and what I was doing. And then my girlfriend too. Like, if I want to start a family, how can I start a family? And um, I'm drinking like this. And when I get drunk, I would always seek external validation from other people. And oftentimes that came out as validation sexually, like people thinking that I'm attractive or funny or just attention from women. And there were multiple times where in front of my girlfriend that I would eventually marry that I was hitting on other women or like asking for phone numbers. And that was beyond embarrassing. And it was uh, shameful, right? And made her, why am I with this person? Like, why would I want to be with this person? They can't, I was just fun for a little while. And then after a bit, I'd turn into the biggest dick in the world. So really looking into those, it's like, I got to do something different.
Why do you feel she stayed with you throughout the struggles that you were going through or the challenges that you were facing with drinking and wanting to kind of have that change and trying to get there?
I honestly, I, I don't know for a fact. I mean, when I'm sober, I'm very caring and doting, and um, I'm very self-sacrificial too, where I will go out of my way to help you and make sure that you have what you want and not just what you need. And I'll help you get there any way that I can. And that, doesn't excuse where those actions that I had. And to be completely honest, probably a little bit of low self-worth on her side too. Um, that she would stay with me. But yeah, that I don't know if I don't think she thought I would ever quit drinking. I don't think anybody in my family thought that I would quit drinking, even though when I was 7 or 8, my dad quit drinking and he's going on almost 30 years now where he hasn't drank. So I also had that in the back of my mind that I knew there was a chance I was going to have a problem and I was going to have to quit drinking. But I'm 24, 25 at this point. Like, am I old enough to quit drinking? Really?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
What do you feel the power of sobriety has done for you? What has it taught you about yourself?
Wow. Um, and the reason I say wow is because there's been different periods of my life where it's taught me different things. Um, at the start, it was that, and this is something that sports also taught me, but this really cemented it. Whatever I put my mind to, I can do.
Mhm.
And so when I was for real done drinking and I said, I'm done, I didn't go to AA. I didn't go do any program. And I didn't go to therapy or anything. I just done. Sheer stubborn assholeness. Like that's how I got sober. And so seeing that I could do things like Wisconsin, all the good restaurants are bars. So I could go to the bars with people drinking and eat and not be like, I need to have one of those.
Mhm.
It proved to me that whatever I was going through in life, I could get through and I could do it in a way that I wasn't a burden on other people. So, really, the start of it was that whatever I put my mind to, I can accomplish. And then it moved into just appreciating little things like going for a walk outside and hearing birds sing. Um, seeing the sun on a snowy day reflect off that snow and appreciating just how gorgeous it is. And then something that is, I mean, I don't know if people are going to believe it, but when you walk outside on a cold day and you take that first breath in, I love that cold feeling, that cold air that comes into your lungs. It just feels clean. And I never felt that before. But, I like to call it the screen door effect, which is what people talked about when you went from standard definition TVs to high definition TVs and now like the 4K. But you see the world and when you're drinking, you have this screen door or the screen window in front of you, and you can see things and you can tell what it is, and it looks clear to you at the time. Like your eyes adjust and you think that it's, you're seeing everything that it has to offer. But as you remove that screen door, as that screen gets lifted and you've been sober for 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, you start to see it. You start to see everything in more detail and appreciating those things that you're seeing. And that has not been lost on me at any point of, my recovery, which is at this point is over 9 years. And then it was into being a parent and being there for my kids. I have two sons who are 3 and 5. They've never seen me drunk. They've never seen me drink. And they know that I'm there for them, and not just for myself, but I'm there for them. And that includes sitting there and letting them cry, letting them be angry, being there with them in their joy, and celebrating their first stick figure that they drew. Talk about little things, right? Like,
Yep.
That is something that sobriety has given me at this point that I would not have had I continued drinking. And there might have been spurts that I would have had it, but it wouldn't have been sustained. And I wouldn't appreciate those stick figures that I have hanging on my fridge, or the moments where we're laying on the couch and one's on my chest and the other one is laying right next to me, and we're cuddled up watching some cartoon, probably Blippy, actually. But I did those moments. I appreciate so much more because of my sobriety.
Talking about currently what you do today, how has sobriety changed the path that you've gone on?
Yeah. I mean, it led to the career that I had before this, which was a high voltage line tech. And it led me towards starting the podcast about sobriety and mental health called Untapped Keg, where I wanted to share with people that they weren't alone going through everyday struggles if you didn't drink. And I didn't use a program or anything. So just hearing from other people the everyday struggles, the everyday challenges that they had in not drinking was a huge help for me. So that led me towards where I am now, which is a self-discovery after alcohol coach. And I'm certified by This Naked Mind, which has a really incredible program to help people get alcohol free and not just stop drinking, but find a level of fulfillment and passion in their lives that they didn't have before.
As a coach, is there anything that someone that you're working with, or a story that you hear that really kind of hits home for you, that kind of not brings like a bad memory, but it kind of shows the journey that you went through and the challenges that you've overcome from what they've gone through?
Yeah, it's the first moments when you stop drinking and you go to hang out with your friends, right? And you find out that, oh, I don't have a lot in common with these people.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually like even being here. I only did it because we drank together and that was our common thread. So the realization that I don't even know what I enjoy doing, and I have to find new friends, or we have to find a way to find something in common that doesn't have to do with alcohol. Generally, it's finding new friends. That was massive to me because a lot of my friends that I had from high school, actually younger than that, I have grown apart from. And a lot of it has to do with drinking because I don't relate to the same things that they do anymore. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But it is a level of acceptance that you need to find within yourself.
I can actually agree with that from someone that didn't drink as much. When I was growing up in a fraternity, and you are surrounded by alcohol so much and you kind of are in the same group session with each other and thinking, oh, you got a lot in common. But me being that person that didn't drink and them being the one that drank all the time, there was definitely differences. And kind of how you mentioned where the common ground was very minimal. And then when they're not drinking and you're trying to like grab at something that really connects that friendship, it was hard. It was hard to find that. And kind of like you kind of drift apart and that's not the right friendship, or it's known as that's that season and you're ready to move on to the next season. So I can relate, even though I was coming from a different perspective when it comes to someone that was drinking constantly in my friendships. But what would you say in those new friendships that you found is the biggest success or the biggest confidence boost for you?
That is a really great question. And it's something that it took me a really long time in not drinking to really find this, because I recreated the same friendships for a long time, which were very surface level.
Mhm.
And really, the last 3 to 4 years in becoming a coach, I've worked on my willingness to be vulnerable. I've worked on how I express my emotions and talk about everything. And the friendships that I have now are stronger. They have not been as long, but we can be vulnerable. We can have that understanding that we're human, and you end up having a deeper bond with somebody when there's not the judgment behind the struggles, behind the feeling that I have to be perfect. I can't be a burden to everybody, on anybody else. I'm enough of a burden on myself. And when you start to realize that not only will they show up for you, but you're the furthest thing from a burden, and you can show up as yourself, those bonds just, they become, as close as family.
Have you noticed that same thing when it comes with family and how they're seeing that change in you and everything?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I've had, I would say, a gap in, it's actually like, it's not just a gap, it's a canyon between me and my parents. And it's gotten wider. And the reason is because I have dealt with a lot of my emotions and my pains, and they have not. And because I've dealt with mine and I've accepted it, I know, I shouldn't say I know because I haven't necessarily asked this, but everything that they show me tells me that they believe I'm judging them.
Hmm.
And I'm not. I'm trying to be me, but it comes off as I know better and like I'm on this high horse. And really, what I'm trying to do is show that there's a different way. And not just that, but you can, you don't have to be perfect. Just try this different way, right? But there's an unwillingness to even try, because that would mean that they made a mistake, or that they did something wrong, or that maybe they don't know everything, and that to them is a lot of pain. And it doesn't mean that I'm happy with the relationship we have, and it doesn't mean that I wouldn't like it to be better, but what it just means is I cannot make them do something they don't want to do, and I've just accepted that. So there's a gap there, like I said, a canyon, and there's a gap between my sister and my brother and myself as well, because of this. And them, it's easier for me to have a conversation with them because they don't get so defensive right away. And so it closes a little bit, but there's this gap that widens when you decide that you're going to look at things differently, and you try to convey that in a way that invites them to come along, but there's just a resistance to it, and it can just widen even further with misunderstandings and lack of commonalities, and just a resistance to change.
Is that one of those situations where it's could take time and you're willing to let the time go by and eventually it might get to a better spot? It might shorten the gap where it could be even better than where it was now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things where I would say the bridge is half built and it's just waiting to, you know, for that other half to be built. So over time, maybe with a change of perspectives, which I probably will not be able to provide, they could see things and maybe, we could work through some stuff. But, I have two kids who are 4 and 5. I don't keep my kids from them. I don't paint the relationship that they have with their grandparents
Mhm.
in any way. That's their own. This is between me and my parents.
Something that you do with content creation is I love that you're always on walks when you spread your message because one, I get jealous because you're outside walking and it's always nice weather, it seems like, but you're very passionate about what you're talking about. What has those been like for you, being able to express thoughts, feelings through content and through social media?
Yeah, it's been really, it helps me to not just understand what I'm feeling and what I'm going through, because a lot of that is actually most of it is stuff that I've been going through either that day or the week before. I'm sharing my journey. This is what the lessons I'm learning, lessons I've learned, things that I really think that people would benefit from opening their mind and seeing different perspectives, having some quick tips and tools to be able to use. And what it does is it allows me to understand things in a different way as well, because I'm trying to condense some very big ideas into 30 to 60-second bites that can provide a way. Honestly, I think it provides, if you're willing to listen to it, provides a tool that you can use in your own life, and or at least a different perspective. And so being able to walk and talk through these and gain a better understanding of even like what I'm feeling and what the lesson is that I'm learning, um it's accelerated my growth, and it's accelerated um you know the the healing that I've been able to do too.
What's been a reaction or someone that's been listening to those that messaged you in a response that's been kind of something that's hit home, hit like the emotion aspect? Like it feels really good to hear what they have said about what you've been talking about.
um wow. So, and it's funny you say that because it's like once every 6 months or something, somebody will message like, this message really hit me home. And there was a person messaged me that they were going through a very, very difficult time, like um really deep depression. They really weren't sure where to begin and what to do. And I talked about self-talk and um my self-loathing that I identified, and how I didn't go from I really hate myself and I think I'm a gigantic piece of crap to I love you. I went from I really hate myself and I think I'm a gigantic piece of crap to I'm okay. And that gives people some motivation, some inspiration that, oh, you mean I don't have to take a post-it note, stick it on my mirror that says, I love you and I'm worthy. I can just say, I'm okay, and mean it, because that's all I'm saying. And that'll pick me up to another level. And it's amazing how just that one change, that one simple change of going from the depths to neutral, can really get people to a level where now they're going out for walks. Now they're going to their local botanical garden, which I go to take walks often, and seeing the benefits that they're receiving from that. It's um I honestly don't stop and think about how amazing that is to see that reflected back at me. And it really is something that is that's really special. And when you take a second to stop and appreciate um it makes you feel like not necessarily that all the pain that you've endured has been worth it, but that all the pain you've endured has meaning.
Looking at your full journey that you've been on, if you described skills or something that's about an attribute about you, how would you describe that journey in a couple words?
Oh, I would say stubbornness, um, stubbornness and resilience, which are two two sides of the same coin, right? You
Mhm.
can say something is stubborn and you can say something is resilient, and they're both so important in my journey that um I used to say that I'm lucky that I was a stubborn asshole, and I'll say it sarcastically, but there's a lot of truth to that, especially when I first stopped drinking. And a lot of what I have continued to do, even though I haven't seen the full effect of it right away, but when I look back at a year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years ago, and I see that now, you can really see how far you've really grown and how far you've really come. And, you know, I'll have 10 years of not drinking in less than a month, and or a little bit over a month. And it's like I started at day one. I started at 1 week, 1 month,
Mhm.
1 year. Now I'm looking back and it's like it's 10. That's really incredible. And it snuck up on me.
Time flies.
It really does. It really does.
What do you have any big celebration for that 10 years, Mark? Because that's a huge accomplishment. Anything
And
exciting planned for
not yet. I am
it?
trying to figure out how I'm going to. I've had friends ask me about it, and I'm going to do something. It may not be planned till like a week before, but it will be something. And um, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, you have my gears turning. There's a pop up non-alcoholic bar that is open on Fridays and Saturdays that just started in my area, and it's going through the new year. So that's what I'm gonna do, is just planning on um, maybe putting an event out there for a group that if people want to come and celebrate, awesome, but definitely inviting my friends and the people who've been important on my journey, and just allowing myself to be proud of myself and allowing others to celebrate me, because that is something that is still new to me as well.
Or the secret planned surprise party or celebration happening, and we're just guessing what that might be right now.
Yeah, yeah. I, maybe I don't think there'd be anybody who would do that, but you never know.
You never know nowadays. The final question I'll ask you, for someone that's listening to this interview based on your journey and experience, what tips or advice would you give them to overcome obstacles, accomplish their goals, and rise to the challenge?
Start small. Start with something that is attainable and see where it takes you from there. Motivation and inspiration, it actually comes from inside of us, and it actually comes from taking action. So whether you're taking those words that I mentioned and you're just saying I'm okay in the mirror while you're looking at yourself, or you're just going to take a day not drinking, you're going to take a dinner not drinking, and let's say you're going to look for a different career, just looking for the different jobs in your area, looking at schools and programs. That's a start. And that can lead to inspiration and it can motivate you to continue to take action. And that's something that just showing up is courageous and it's brave on its own. So just start small, start attainable, and give yourself credit for starting there.
RJ, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about your rise to the challenge. We are excited to see what the future looks like for you.
Thanks, Alex. I appreciate it.